The October 25th coup, and it was a coup and should be treated as such by the administration, was a blatant power grab by the military after months of mounting tensions between the military and civilian elements of the Sovereign Council. The root cause of the tensions appears to be the reluctance of the military to cede power to civilian authorities. Even now, the bloody crackdown on civilians continues, and the fatality count is rising. The administration has taken some actions, suspending most assistance, high-level diplomatic missions to the region, meetings with local and regional stakeholders, and public statements, but security forces continue to attack civilians, arrest civil society activists, and engage in sexual violence with impunity. So, Ambassador Fee, why hasn't the administration imposed personal targeted sanctions on those responsible for impeding Sudan's democratic process and perpetrating human rights abuses?
Mr. Chairman, as I outlined, we worked closely with our partners in the international community to impose extraordinary economic pressure on the government. The combined efforts have had a devastating fiscal impact and have made very clear that Sudan cannot move forward with international assistance if the security forces don't change their behavior. I have also made those points clear in my engagement, as has Ambassador Feltman and Ambassador Satterfield in their roles as special envoy. We are also engaging, as you know, regional and international partners to pass the same messages.
But my question is, we have not, to my knowledge, imposed personal targeted sanctions on those responsible. For example, the Sudanese security forces reportedly have vast business interests, controlling an estimated 250 plus companies in various sectors from mining to agriculture. Why hasn't the administration considered sanctioning any of these companies or the security force members who own them? It would seem to me that this would be a priority, since they're the ones who seem to be in the intransigent entity here in terms of allowing Sudan to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We agree exactly that those are sectors where we should explore imposing pressure, and we are actively looking at how to do that. You know, our traditional existing regimes were not specifically designed for this moment, so we are looking at how we might develop a new regime in which we would work with you, and I was gratified to hear about the legislation you're considering, and we are looking also at non-traditional ways to get at these financial sources of power for the security forces.
Yeah, I would think that you have authorities already under a variety of existing laws, but you have failed, you not personally, but of course the administration has failed to take use of any of them. If that is the case, and you feel that you don't have them, then please, by all means, let the committee know what it is that you're missing, because we would be very desirous of giving you the wherewithal. You and Special Envoy Satterfield recently returned, you referred to it, a trip to Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia. Is there progress on persuading the Sudanese military to end its practice of using lethal force, arbitrary arrests, sexual violence against civil society activists and pro-democracy protesters?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's too soon to tell. Certainly, the protests are going to continue. This is an immutable fact. We made that clear to the Sudanese security force leaders and to their partners in the Arab region, that they need to change this behavior. They need to cease using lethal force against protesters. They need to provide accountability for the conduct of security forces. The Sovereign Council, which, as you know, is currently governing Sudan, has established a committee to look into the violence on January 17th. These are nascent and inadequate steps, but we are mobilizing our pressure. We also stopped in Addis and spoke to the African Union about its engagement. The IGAD envoy is currently in Khartoum. We're coordinating with other like-minded partners to try and pass that message. This meeting today is a helpful sign to all these leaders that they need to change their behavior if they want Sudan to succeed.
Well, I hope it would not be necessary to have a hearing in order to move them, but that the administration would. Let me turn to Ambassador Coleman to finalize. First of all, we'd like to be consulted on your plans before they are finalized, as you reference a $700 million package to be readjusted to meet the new realities of Sudan's political and economic crisis. I'd like to have some insights as to what you're thinking there. And finally, how is USAID working to address the needs in Darfur in the wake of the coup? We shouldn't lose sight of the continued violence and displacement in Darfur as we are dealing with this larger problem. These voices have been marginalized for far too long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we absolutely will consult with you before we finalize our plans for the $700 million appropriation. So as I noted in my opening statement, immediately after the events of October 25th, we paused all of our funding and did a review and made a determination not to move forward with any funding that works directly with the government. We have instead reprogrammed some of that money and directed it to activities that support civil society in a couple of different areas, in particular on strengthening civil society and civilian political engagement as partners in the peace process, helping them advocate, providing civic education and training, even transporting local groups to Khartoum so that they can engage in dialogue with UNITAMs and with other groups, connecting them for the ability to come up with a more unified vision of civilian demands going forward for this transition. We're also spending money on human rights work to bolster collection of information around human rights abuses, independent media that are able to both bring in different voices into the media space and work on anti-corruption measures with transparency in their reporting. With respect to Darfur, yes, sir, there's just remarkable needs still in Darfur across several of those states, Darfur, Blue Nile, South and West Kordofan. There's almost 3 million internally displaced people, and we are working with our partners there to provide basic needs and humanitarian assistance. Also trying to help with some health needs there and livelihoods in the agricultural space, as so many of the people do depend on subsistence farming with a specific focus on women, and also addressing some of the gender-based violence that has happened there, providing support for survivors of gender-based violence.
Thank you.